Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our July IHMVCU Financial Fitness Workshop. My name is Addie Hendrick. I'm the Member Development Specialist here at IH, and we're so glad you could join us today to learn more about back to school tips for a successful school year. So a new school year brings fresh opportunities and new expenses. So at IH, we're here to help families and students plan ahead to manage costs and stay financially organized. This workshop will cover budgeting for supplies, technology, fees, and more, along with tips to reduce stress and make the most of your resources. So whether you're a parent, a guardian, a student, you'll gain tools to help set up a smooth and successful school year, which how is it already almost back to school? So you'll learn today how to build a realistic back to school budget, ways to plan ahead for ongoing costs throughout the school year, tips to save on supplies, technology, and school-related expenses, and then financial tools and resources available through IHMVCU. So with that, I'd like to introduce our knowledgeable IHMVU speaker tonight, Haley Esther. Haley has been with IH for 4.5 years now and is currently the branch manager at our Bettendorf location. Prior to that, Haley completed her bachelor's degree at Augustana College in Rock Island. She frequently volunteers in nearby schools by partnering with Junior Achievement, Read United, and IJAG. Haley is very passionate about giving back to our members and our community as a whole. So welcome, Haley. So before we jump in, I just want to remind you all that everyone is muted for the entirety of this session. If questions arise during it, feel free to place them in the chat and we will address them live at the end of the webinar. Also, this session is being recorded for future viewing purposes. So with that said, I will hand it over to Haley.
Sorry, thank you, Addie. So yes, like she said, hi, I'm Haley. I'm very excited to be here with you guys tonight. So even though it's only July, now is the perfect time to start thinking about our back to school planning. We all know how quickly summer flies by, and before we know it, the school year will be here. I think some schools start going back in less than a month, so it's coming up quick. But planning ahead can make a big difference in reducing financial stress. So today we're going to share some tips and strategies to help you prepare now rather than feeling rushed later on or overwhelmed right as the deadline is approaching. Our goal is for you to leave this webinar feeling more confident and ready for the school year ahead. When most people think about back to school expenses, they usually think about buying school supplies, but as you can see here on the slide, that's really only one piece of the puzzle. So usually when families are budgeting for back to school, we also want to take into consideration things like clothing and shoes, technology fees and devices, the cost for lunch, transportation to and from school and activities, and then the extracurricular activities and sports themselves, which can really add up quickly. Individually, these expenses may not seem overwhelming, but when they all hit around the same time, they can add up and leave you feeling a little bit frazzled. So that's why planning ahead is so important. Creating a budget before the school year starts gives you time to prioritize your expenses, spread out purchases where it's possible, and avoid feeling like everything must be paid for all at one time. The goal isn't to have a perfect budget, but just to have a plan that works for your family's situation. So now that we've talked a little bit about why budgeting matters, let's look at some practical ways you can start preparing for these expenses. So this slide here has the basic outline of a budget, the 50-20-30 rule, which is really one of the most common ways that you'll see people budget. It's just a simple guideline that helps you kind of organize your money. So when we're looking at this model, generally we want about 50% of our income to go towards our needs, 30% to go towards our wants, and then 20% to go towards saving or paying down debt. So if you find yourself thinking there is no way my budget fits those exact percentages, you are definitely not alone. I know for a fact that my budget personally does not fit into this nice little model, but it's just a good start for you to help kind of get you planning and where to go. So you can definitely adjust as needed, but this is just a baseline to get you started. So when we're preparing for the school year, we want to start by listing all the expenses we expect to have. So some will be needs like school supplies, transportation, lunches, required fees that the school district asks you to pay. Others may be wants, like a new backpack, but maybe your kid has a backpack that's still in perfectly good condition that they can use, or wanting name brand clothes versus just having clothes that do the same job that don't have the fancy tag on them. So once you've identified these expenses, you can set spending limits for each category before you start shopping. Having a plan can make it easier to stay on track and avoid overspending. Once you've created your budget and set those spending boundaries for your kids, and let's be honest, for yourself too, it's time to look for ways to stretch those dollars. So let's start with some simple cost saving strategies for school supplies. So once you find your budget, the next step is finding ways to make your money go a little bit further. The good news is that there's plenty of simple strategies that can help reduce back to school costs without sacrificing what your child actually needs. One of the easiest ways to save is by shopping sales and taking advantage of tax-free weekends if your state offers them. So we have some coming up here in the Illinois, Iowa area. Tax-free weekends in Illinois tax-free week for Illinois, is the 7th through the 16th. And then in Iowa, they have a tax-free weekend, August 7th and 8th. So if you can plan ahead and try to get out during those times, that's a really, those small savings on the taxes can really add up once you get all of your school supplies into the cart. It also pays to compare prices. So don't just assume that one store has the best deal on everything. You can go online and kind of compare rates and prices and see, maybe I want to go to Walmart to get a few folders and notebooks because they're cheaper there, but Target has a really good deal on the colored pencils and markers and stuff that your kids need. So kind of looking at that to see if maybe making a couple stops will save you money instead of just saying, I'm going to get it all done in a one-stop shop. And then there are some items that your family will use every year, or maybe you have a couple students in school and they need some repeat items. So like notebooks, pencils, tissues. If you find yourself in that situation, trying to buy in bulk can be a better option. Or if you know another family that you're close with that have students around the same age, maybe trying to buy in bulk with them and splitting the difference rather than getting individual supplies for each individual student. And then finally, don't forget to look around your house before you shop. You may already have backpacks, folders, calculators, other supplies from last year that are in great condition. I know kids can be really demanding about wanting the nicest, newest stuff going back to school. It's part of the excitement. But one of the things that my mom always taught me is I always wanted the newest book bag, the coolest lunchbox, everything going back to school. But when I was growing up, my mom really helped me see the value in reusing it and how we can take that money then, the money that we saved on a backpack, and maybe put that towards other things I want. So it's a really great time to start having those lessons with your kids too and letting them be involved in the back to school shopping. And this will really get them started on making those budgeting decisions for themselves and making thoughtful spending decisions and understanding the difference between I need this thing and I just want this thing. So next, this could be for you one of the most expensive parts of your budget. Extracurricular activities add up really quick. So whether that's sports, music, theater, different clubs, or after school programs, these are super, super valuable to your students, but they can also come with a significant price tag. So one of the first expenses families typically incur is registration or participation fees. They can add, these costs can vary depending on the activity. So it's helpful to plan for them in advance whenever possible. If you know your student is doing an event or an activity that maybe they did last year, thinking of all the costs that went into that activity last year and then planning for them this year. So if you can list those out the best that you remember, that will really help you. And if paying the fee all at once is difficult, sometimes school districts will offer payment plans for you to be able to split that up so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. Next, when we're thinking about extracurriculars, we have uniforms, equipment, other supplies that are needed. So before purchasing everything brand new, you can check in and see if the school or the organization has any used equipment available, or if they offer equipment swaps or let you borrow an item, or see if there's any families that are selling gently used items. Buying secondhand can save you a considerable amount of money, especially for activities your child may outgrow quickly. And then travel costs are another expense that can catch you off guard when you're thinking about gas, hotels, meals, tournament fees. these costs can really add up quickly. I know, I know thinking of even a tournament here at the Betplex, those are, even though the gas might not be as much, you're still paying for the entry fee to get in there, the meals that you're eating out while you're not at home because you're busy. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then a lot of schools and organizations also offer different fundraising opportunities. So fundraising does take a little bit of extra effort, but it can really help you offset those registration fees, travel expenses, and equipment costs. So taking advantage of these opportunities can make extracurricular activities feel a lot more affordable. The goal isn't to have your child avoid activities that they enjoy. We just simply want to plan ahead and find ways that we can reduce the cost to make sure that these opportunities fit comfortably in your family's budget. So another thing to look at while we're trying to save costs is our meal planning and everyday spending. So this one typically gets overlooked. These purchases seem really small in the moment, but when you think about a whole school year, it can really start to add up quickly. So one of the easiest ways to save is by packing lunches when possible. Buying lunch every day can get really expensive, especially if you have multiple kids in school. And so packing a lunch, even if it's just a few days a week, can make a noticeable difference in your budget. Planning meals for the week is another simple habit that can save you both time and money. When you know what you're making for dinner each night, you're less likely to make last-minute trips to the grocery store or rely on takeout after a busy day of school activities. And let's be honest, it lessens the mental load a little bit too. Back to school is a really stressful time, so anything you can do to take out some of those choices and just already know I'm going home and making this for dinner tonight is really helpful. Creating a grocery list before you shop can also help you stay on track. So that way, when you go into the grocery store, you're only buying what you need rather than going in and buying a bunch of stuff that you don't end up using that goes to waste. And then lastly, we want to try to limit our impulse spending. So it's easy as you're walking through to grab some extra snacks, drinks, or something convenient to make, like a few extra frozen pizzas, especially when you're shopping with your kids. So before adding something to your cart, ask yourself, is this something I truly need, or is this just an impulse purchase? And then another tip to help to kind of save money in the lunch area is check in with your school to see if they have a discounted or free and reduced lunch program. Sorry. The key takeaway here is that saving money doesn't always require making big sacrifices. Often it's the small, consistent habits that we build, like meal planning, packing lunches, shopping with a plan, that will honestly have the biggest impact for us over time. So next, we want to think about unexpected expenses. So throughout the school year, there's always things that come up that we might not necessarily be planning for. One really common example of this is field trips. Sometimes it feels like they just pop up with almost no notice at all. And then next thing you know, you have 2 days to sign a permission slip and get it back to the school along with the funds to send your child on that field trip. So sometimes, so you might want to just write those into your plan and have a separate savings set aside for field trips. You may also find that you have to replace school supplies during the school year. Maybe a notebook fills up, pencils disappear all the time, or they get broken, water bottles get lost. Your kid might need a new folder or a new calculator. And these are things that aren't huge expenses individually, but the more things that come up throughout the school year, the more it can get a little overwhelming and feel like it's putting a bigger dent in your budget. And then there are really the true surprises that we don't think about, where maybe a backpack zipper breaks, or your kids' gym shoes wear out way faster than they should because they just have too much energy and love gym class, or they need an unexpected item for a class project. Yearbooks are another one that come up that can be kind of expensive that we don't always think about, or if you have students in high school, maybe parking is something they have to think about, or parking for sporting events as well. Elementary school kids have a lot of parties that need supplies, food, and things like that. So those are all kind of little things that we don't really think about, but are really helpful to have a budget for. So one of the best ways to prepare for that is to build a small emergency cushion in your back to school budget. It doesn't have to be a super large amount. Even setting aside $10 to $20 each paycheck can create a small savings fund for you so that you can use it when those unexpected expenses arise. So that way you already have money set aside for those things. You're not rushing to figure out, oh, great, my kid just wore through their shoes that should have lasted them another year and I don't have $80 to drop on a new pair of shoes. That's okay because you have your emergency savings set to the side. So you don't have to scramble or feel stressed when that comes up. You're never going to be able to predict every expense, and that is definitely not the goal, but we just want to feel prepared enough so that these surprises don't become financial setbacks for us. And then another thing that we want to talk about is building financial habits. So I kind of mentioned this on one of the earlier slides, but back to school season creates a great opportunity to teach children valuable money lessons in everyday situations. So instead of making purchasing decisions for them, involve them in the process where you can. So maybe you've created a budget and you share that with your child before you go shopping and let them know this is the amount that we have to spend and we can't go over this limit. And it teaches them that money's not unlimited and every purchase has choices that you have to make with it. Shopping together is also a great opportunity to teach them how to compare prices. So you can show them, for example, with markers, maybe you take the Crayola brand versus the store brand and you show them like, hey, these Crayola markers are $2 more expensive and you get the same number and the same colors and they work just as well as the store brand markers. And that kind of shows them then, hey, if we save this money here, we can spend it on other things that we might want rather than having to have the name brand item of or the name brand thing for everything. And these small conversations, they seem really simple, but they can help children become really thoughtful consumers later down the road. Another important lesson is helping kids understand the difference between needs and wants. So school supplies, required clothing, anything required for a class are needs, while name brand items or extra accessories are more wants. And learning to recognize that difference is a skill that they'll use throughout their entire lives. And then finally, encourage your child to set their own savings goals, whether they're saving for a new video game, or maybe there's a new bat that they really want for baseball, or just something special that they've been wanting. Working towards that goal teaches them patience, responsibility, and how valuable it can be to plan ahead. The great thing is that these lessons don't require formal classes or even complicated conversations. Some of the best financial education happens during everyday moments like grocery shopping, comparing prices, or getting ready for a new school year. And then we do have some financial resources here at IH. We're here to support you and your family at every step of your financial journey. So we have a variety of resources that fit the back to school, including savings accounts, budgeting tools, financial education resources. We have a Balance Builder Junior Savers Youth Program. So that, like it says on the screen, a $50 deposit on us will match what you put, the first $50 that you put in there to help get your students started on the right foot for saving. So that extra $50 can be a really great way for you to kind of plan in and start maybe that emergency school supply cushion that we were talking about a few slides ago. That would be a great way to get that started for your student. And then another thing that we might be thinking about is college and saving for that now. For some of you, it might seem like a really long time away, but the sooner you can start saving for college, the better, because it does add up. Some things that we might think about saving for would be like a laptop, textbooks, on top of the original tuition costs for that. So if you want to start saving specifically for higher education, we do also offer, and something you may want to consider would be an education IRA or a 529 college savings plan, which are designed specifically to help plan for education expenses. And if you're wondering about that, Addie will drop more information about the education IRA and the 529 college savings plan in the chat towards the end. And she will also be dropping a link to a previous financial fitness webinar that we've done about budgeting as well, and a blog that we have just about more options for saving. And then So we have maybe, okay. And then we have just a quick checklist to kind of wrap up and put a nice bow on everything that we've talked about today. So these 6 steps that I'm going to outline for you can really help you stay organized, reduce your financial stress, and make the most of your back to school budget. So first would be making a spending plan. Before you start shopping, take a few minutes to decide how much you can realistically afford to spend. Having that budget in place will help guide your decisions and keep your spending from getting out of control or, like we talked about, that impulse buying. And to also help with the impulse buying, the second step would be to shop with a list. That way you can make sure that you're really sticking to the school supplies, the clothes, or groceries that you need, not throw extra things in the cart as you're walking up to the cash register. Thirdly, we want to compare prices. So just a few extra minutes of your time, whether that's online or going to different stores, using retailer apps to compare those prices and see where you'll get the best deal. That money can really add up. And then next, we want to remember to plan for the extras. So field trips, fundraisers, replacement supplies, unexpected costs, those are all going to come up. We know that they happen no matter what. So having that small cushion built into your budget now will help you handle those expenses with less stress down the road. Another good habit that we want is to set a savings goal. So whether you're saving for future school expenses, extracurricular activities, just starting an emergency fund, setting aside even a small amount every paycheck or every month can really add up and make a big difference over time. And then finally, you want to track your spending throughout the school year. So your budget isn't something that you just create one time and leave it and forget about it. You want to check in regularly and see what's working and adjust what's needed. So a healthy budget will actually change as you're going through it, because we might think that we're one way and I know exactly how much I'm going to spend. And then you'll notice as you're going through it that there's just some things that you forget to account for. So when you go back and add those in, it can actually help keep you on track better than if you just leave it and say, well, I'll adjust my spending to get down to my budget. That usually doesn't happen. It works a little bit better when you can adjust your budget to match where you're at. And we know that back to school season can feel overwhelming, but with a little bit of planning and putting in these strategies that we've talked about, we can reduce that stress and feel more confident about our finances. So thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I hope you guys found these tips and tricks helpful. I hope you leave with some ideas that you can put into practice right away. And if you have any questions about budgeting, saving, or reaching your financial goals, our team at IHMVCU is here to help. We wish you a very safe, successful, and financially confident school year ahead.
Yay! Thank you, Haley, for sharing your knowledge with us. Now we have time for some questions. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to place them in the chat. We have one question to get us started, Haley. So what does a financial coach cover when I come in, and how long does it take to meet with them?
Yes, so our financial coaches can really talk to you about a multitude of things. So one thing that they specialize in is helping you get started with a budget and a spending plan if that's something that you want to go over. They do also go into, if you're interested in rebuilding your credit or things like that, you really decide what financial topic you want to talk about, and our financial coach will walk you through it step by step. We allot the appointments for an hour, but you can, sometimes people come in and they only want to chat for 10 minutes, and that's perfectly fine. Sometimes people come in and they find that the hour was a great start and then they want to schedule a follow-up appointment, and either way is perfectly fine. It's kind of whatever you need help with and what your needs are.
Yes, for sure. If you're interested in budgeting too, or need like a budget tracker, I know they can offer you that too as well, which really helps. And if you go watch our budgeting financial fitness video, we have some trackers on there too, if you guys are interested in looking at a spreadsheet as well. And then one more question we have for you. What if I haven't started saving for back to school expenses yet?
Yes, so there is no worries if you haven't started saving for back to school budgeting yet. It is never too late to start saving, and you can use this now. So thinking now for next year, because maybe you're feeling like this school year is too close and I'm never going to get saved up what I need to now. that's okay. You can also start planning for maybe the second half of the school year now. This first half is about to start, but if you want to break it up semester by semester, you can do it that way, or just completely start setting your savings aside now, and then you'll have that emergency cushion and be ready to start planning for the next school year too.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Haley. If you guys have any more questions, you can also place those in the chat and we'll answer them after the session. But we appreciate you all joining us tonight. If you have any other questions about back to school tips or advice, or are interested in a free financial checkup, like Haley had mentioned, we have a QR code right there that you can scan to capture the path to book an appointment with Haley or one of our financial coaches at the Bettendorf branch. It also is, the link is in the chat that I just posted too. So that's the way you can go if you're viewing on your phone. But thank you for joining us. Again, if you have questions, let us know. But we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and we wish you all the best going back to school.